On today's Hibulb Conversations, Matthew Bonnet, a Shoshonesco Lakota native who grew up on the Rosebud Reservation and is a mission school survivor. Matthew talks about his experiences at the mission school that he endured along with his brothers and sisters, and we learn about his life fighting for Indian rights. Hi, welcome to Hibulb Conversations. I'm Michelle Hernandez, and today we're here with Matthew Bonnet. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you this morning. Will you tell us where you were born and a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born in South Dakota. I went to the mission school, St. Francis Indian Mission. Time I was 6 years old. For 10 months out of the year, 2 months I got to go home. I did that for the first 8 years of my education. Then I went to high school at the Ogallala Community High School, which is in Pine Ridge Reservation. The St. Francis Indian Mission that I went to school at was on my reservation, which was the Rosebud Reservation, which is basically what it is. So that's kind of how I got to be here.
When were you born?
I was born on April 2nd, 1946. My dad's name is Matthew Bonnet. My mom's name is Julian Swallow. Both are Shoshonesco people. My grandpa's name was Joseph Bonnet, and his wife's name was Yellowhair, also Shoshonesco people. My grandpa, his name was Folding Throat. His wife was Putty Bird, and I believe they also were Shoshonesco people, all of the Lakota Nation. We are Shoshonesco people, which literally translates into burnt thigh, the burnt thigh people. We are not Rosebud. Rosebud is an agency of the government, a government agency or outpost that they put us on, and they call it the government outpost, and they start referring to us as the Rosebud Indian. So that's how that term, as I understand it, come about.
And do you have any siblings?
Well, yes, I had, my mom had 13 children, 3 of which passed on when they were very small. The other 10 sisters and brothers, 6 sisters, and my other 3 brothers, all went to the same mission school for the same amount of years. Now I have 2 brothers left, and 3 sisters.
So you attended the mission school on your reservation and then high school, and what did you do after high school?
Well, I went down to Haskell, Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
And that, at that time, was a high school / vocational school in Lawrence, Kansas. I stayed at Tinker Hall when I was down there. I liked that school because it was the first time I was really exposed to a lot of different tribes of people.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a good learning experience. After coming back that year, I had gotten married to a Wounded Knee woman by the name of Linda Tutu. Her family was Wounded Knee people. I had 4 children from her. And before we got married, we had to go to the BIA to get permission.
Oh.
So they gave us a certificate that said they said we could get married. And I was supposed to give that to people that are going to marry us. So I gave that to them, and they read it, and they said, "What is this?" So I said, "Well, they told us to give you that." And they said, "I don't need this." So anyway, I still got that too, you know, because things didn't work out between the kids' mother and myself. So all these years I got that. So I figured one day I'm going to sue the BIA. And they said this woman was good for me.
Oh, they were wrong.
Yeah, I just realized that they were always wrong from the beginning. So, yeah. So then I went to work during that time for the Greater Omaha Community Action Agency in Omaha, Nebraska. About the time Robert Kennedy was killed. Oh. That's how I kind of remember things. And they had me running the A.B. Dick machine for a while, and then they needed to try to get the Indian Native community involved because they weren't reaching them. So they asked me to help do that, and they gave me training as a community organizer. And so in that process, I and Nate Parker, who's from Omaha, he was an Omaha man, we developed the Indian Center in Omaha. It took, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years, something like that. And in that time, I also did the health clinic, working with Creighton University, where we did preventative medicine and made sure our Native children got their shots and their screening and their physicals and all the medicine they need before they start school. And we extended that to the elderly program. And I did that, and then I went back to Pine Ridge for a while, and then I went to Chicago, where Faith Smith, who worked for the Indian Center in Chicago, had asked me to come to a meeting with her with the University of Illinois at Chicago Circle Campus. And they needed somebody to help recruit Native students and like that. And so I kind of made a deal with them, you know, that they wanted me to raise money to help to do this, and I was willing to do that. But for every $3 I brought in, I won an institutional commitment for $1. And they agreed to that. The chancellor agreed to that, and there were 5 colleges on that campus, and the various administrators from the colleges. And so that first year, I recruited 109 Native full-time students and about 65 part-time students.
From the immediate area?
Yes, from the Chicago area, yes. And I recruited, and I got a staff of 5. Counselors and assistants to help with the students as they come through. And I just got a call from them probably about a month ago. Guy by the name of Tall, I think, over there at the university, runs that program now, and it's still going.
Wow.
So it's been 50 years now.
Wow.
And the program is still going, and I feel kind of a sense that a lot of the kids that went through there, you know, had a good impact on them, maybe a good impact on their children, and hopefully a really good impact on their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so I think the effects of that type of thing, you know, is far-reaching. So after 50 years, you know, I think a lot of folks were kind of happy about that.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, yeah.
Wow.
And then I went back to Rosebud, and I and my kids, and I went back because my mother had asked me to come, and she was sick at the time. So we went back, but when we got back, my mom was in the hospital, and so she didn't come out. So my kids, we moved out in the country, and lived without water or electricity for about a year. Had a little trailer house, and we made out pretty good, you know. I'm really proud of my kids, and my oldest daughter went to nursing school, and now is running the dialysis program in Pine Ridge.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and my oldest son was in the Marines, and he was caught up in the Gulf War where Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait. So he was a Marine. He went in there to get that resolved. And as a result, a lot of the munitions that were blown up by the Americans against Saddam Hussein, a lot of that had chemicals.
Yeah.
And the boys went in there, and he had got some of those chemicals in his system.
Oh.
So he is now back in Pine Ridge. He's 100% disabled. He's receiving some benefits from the government for that. And my other daughter served 20 years in the Army. She is now working in the VA in the Portland area. And my youngest son, Matthew, who thinks he's as good looking as me, he worked here for Microsoft for a number of years.
Wow.
And so he still lives in the area along with my grandson. And my youngest son, Nathaniel, he's in New York. He told me one time he was gay, and I think he was kind of afraid to tell me.
Oh, yeah.
And I can understand, how people react. But I told him the only thing I expected from him was that he never used this as an excuse for not being the best person he could be.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So he's now have been living in New York now for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And he comes back quite often to visit, and stuff. So we like seeing him.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much for telling us
Sure.
about your life and your parents and your children. Yeah.
Hope I didn't bore you to death.
Never. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. Today we're here with Matthew Bonnet. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So can you tell us more about the St. Francis Mission School? How long did you attend?
I went there 8 years, not full years, 10 months out of each year.
Okay.
2 months I went home.
Is that the only time you went home, was just during that summer break?
You were there 24/7.
Okay.
One time I was 6 years old, I went there to when I left after the 8th grade. Then I went to Pine Ridge, the Ogallala Community High School. But I was a day student there. I didn't stay in the boarding school there because my parents lived right there in Pine Ridge at the time. So all us kids, we got to go home every day. And that made a big difference in our outcome.
Yeah.
But we have good parents, who really loved us and really provided the support, emotional support, physical, spiritual support that we needed during times, and I can't say enough about that, but I went there for those 8 years. One side of the school were all the boys, first grade to the 12th grade. I think maybe 1,000 boys from those grades.
Wow.
And then on this side, girls, same, first grade to the 12th grade. I think that was about 1,000 too, maybe.
And your siblings were there with you too?
All of them, yeah. We couldn't talk to our sisters.
Okay.
It always separated everybody. So went to church every day to Mass, not at church, but to Mass.
To Mass.
Every day, 7 days a week. We had high Mass on Sundays.
Okay.
We had confessions on Thursdays. And whether you needed to confess or not, you still went.
Right.
And we used to sometimes make up sins.
Oh.
And so the next confession we would confess we made no sins. I don't know, it just got to be ridiculous after a while. But, I and Richard Bordeaux, we used to, I don't know if it's okay to use names, maybe I shouldn't, but we used to carry a coal from the coal room in 5-gallon buckets and fill up the hopper for this big furnace that kept the boys' dormitories kind of warm, you know. But most of it was done these little heaters on the wall, you know, steam. So that heated up the steam that went into those heaters. So we did that, oh, geez, for 3 or 4 or 5 years, something like that. Every night we would do that. They had, the school had ways to kind of discipline, you know. The easiest way was they would do what they call stand post. So you have you stand against with your face, forehead against the wall out in the playroom where you stood there, and sometimes during the play period, maybe an hour, maybe 2.
Wow.
And the other was sometimes in the whole class or somebody did something or nobody would own up to it, they would have you hold your hands out like this. And like that, and then you turn them over after a while, but you know, your arms get heavy, you know.
Yeah.
And then one of them would come by and put a dime in your hand. But that kind of felt like a 10-pound weight.
Right. And
your hand would go down, and boy, down to the floor you go. You know, then they had these regular straps, long strap, from a horse harness. And they also have a razor strap that they would use. They had then what we called Jesus rope, which was a rope with several strands coming off of it. And then they had just a straight rope. And then they had a willow stick that they would hit you with. Then we used to kind of joke that maybe armies got tired because they started using cattle prod. People don't know what cattle prod is. Just a long tube. It's kind of equivalent to now a taser that they use.
Oh my gosh.
And they had 2 prongs on it, and they would hit you with that.
Wow. What were some of the reasons for the harsh discipline?
Well, you know, it's kind of like depending on what they did. You know, like one for me is one time they had this bell on this building out there, like the gymnasium. There's a long rope on it, so you can call the kids in from outside by ringing it. So they had me go out there one time and ring that bell. So I go out there, and the rope is laying on the floor, on the ground. And I go back in, and the father says, I didn't hear the bell ring. I said, well, the rope's broke, and it's laying on the ground. He said, you broke the rope? I said, no, I didn't break the rope. I said, it was laying on the ground. I got out there. You broke that rope? No, I didn't. Well, make a long story short, you know, yeah, that was one of the reasons.
Wow. And it didn't matter what age you were, right? I mean, we said 6 to 18.
No.
Yeah.
It depended on what you did. That you know, I guess they give that whatever.
The punishment.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends. You know, I sat on the tribal council with him in Rosebud, and we were talking about time. And he was kind of thinking about a lot of stuff, and he's saying, you know, one time he said they gave me a choice of what to be hit with. He said, and I was looking at those. He said, and I got hit with that razor strap, so I knew what that was about. I got hit with that rope, and I knew what that was about. He went on down there, and he said, I saw that willow stick. He said, I thought, well, I ain't got that yet, but that didn't look too bad. He said, so I said, give me that stick. So he gave them that. He said, oh, he said, they hit me once with that, and I saw stars.
Oh, my gosh.
He said, but they had to give me 10 of them, he said. Yeah. I didn't ask him what he did, because to me, you don't abuse children like that. I don't care what they do, you know. And some of us took it upon ourselves to fist fight them. Some of us took it upon ourselves to protect other children, you know, and things like that. So there's a lot of things that you do or you don't do that get you into trouble, you know. But, you know, everybody was always hungry, you know, was always hungry. But the best, I was talking to my brother one time, I said, what was the best meal that you remember when we was in the school there? He said, Sunday morning. Yeah, I said, Sundays we had cornflakes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sunday evening we had bologna sandwich. I think that's the only meat we had.
Oh, really?
With the bologna sandwich. A lot of times you had mush, you know, white mush, cornmeal, you know, different like that for breakfast. Yeah, so it didn't matter what you did, you know, you just, you know, I don't ever remember asking anybody, and they got disciplined, they got hit. I don't ever asked them, what'd you do?
Right, because it didn't matter. It was just so unjustified, yeah.
Instead, you kind of made a joke of it, you know. When they hit you with that cattle prod, you know, and the kids are just, we say, hey, you should have seen yourself. You know, people laughing and stuff, you know, make a joke out of it.
Try to make light of it.
Yeah, same with the church, you know. A lot of kids, you know, would faint, you know, in the church every morning. Maybe, I don't know, I did myself several times. You know, kids would just fall over. And I think it's because they just didn't have enough food.
Yeah.
They were hungry all the time, you know. So that happened a lot, you know. But you didn't talk back. You took Latin class in the morning, you know. Then you take religion classes first, and then you take a Latin class, and then you take English class, math class, geography class, and like that. All taught by a priest. Okay. And I remember one time they were going to teach us sex education. Oh, we were so excited. So they took us to the church to do sex education, you know, and the priest came up. He started talking about things, and we were sitting there thinking, get to the best part, you know, and they was talking about marriage, you know, and all of that, you know, and we would get to the best part. Finally he did. He said, sex. All the young boys just sat up, you know. He said, sex is like eating steak and potatoes. You eat enough steak and potatoes, after a while you get tired of it. That was it. My friend Larry Lathtemper was sitting next to me. I said, hey, he said, what? I said, what's steak? He said, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. So, you know, stuff like that, you know. And it was, you know, there were times, you know, with the kids, the boys, you know, that we had a lot of fun, they had a lot of humor, you know, and stuff. And I think it kept us, you know, but there are a lot of times, too, we run away. You know, I remember running away with 2 or 3 other kids. And somewhere down the road there, we were gone for a couple of days. In wintertime, well, I don't know why we always run away in the wintertime, but anyway.
Because in the summer you were already home.
We were already home. Well, we took off and we split up. So when kids were going up north to home, and because they're going this way. And of course they caught us. They caught 3 of us, brought us back, and they, you know, you asked for it, so they gave it to you, you know. But one kid didn't come back. And so we thought, well, he made that, you know, he sure did, you know. So we talked about him, you know. And then come the end of June, I think it was, parents would come pick you up for the summer. And I remember his parents, my parents were there, and I was looking around and I seen his parents. And they were talking to this priest. That was something that seen that mom crying.
Yeah.
His dad walking around. They didn't know.
They didn't know.
They came to pick him up. So somewhere out there he's laying.
Didn't make it home.
But, you know, you do things like that, you know, and you kind of keep going.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you for sharing this with us. I know it's not easy. Well, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about what you're up to these days. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. Today we're here with Matthew Bonnet. You said you didn't talk about the mission school experience for years, and what is bringing you to talk about it now?
When I contacted the mission school, the dialysis, archdialysis in Milwaukee, they control all the mission schools, in the Dakotas. At that time, I was kind of going through wanting to do something about it. So I thought progressively I could talk to them and maybe work with them to try to resolve some of these issues. I guess the guy that is in charge of the archdiocese in Milwaukee had called me after that. And I was talking to him on the phone, and my oldest son, or my son Matthew was there, and my youngest son, both young men then. And I asked the father if I could put the phone on the speaker so that kids could hear what he was saying. And so he said, that's okay. And so he started talking about those things. And I seen what was hurting my children, and they were crying. I never wanted to do that.
Right.
I never wanted to see them be hurt like that. But after that, I thought about that. I thought that somebody has to talk. The truth of this may hurt them, but it'll go a long way to explain me, why I am the way I am for my children. And I kind of extended that out to other children that had different experiences with those that went to the mission schools. And so when these folks had asked me recently about doing this, I talked to my sisters and they said to go ahead and do that. We have some of our family people who are inside. My mother went to that school. My dad went to that school. My dad froze his toes off when he ran away. And that what killed him in the end.
Oh, wow.
So these truths have to be told. And I'm hopeful and still hopeful, that the Catholic Church and the Jesuits will take responsibility for what they've done and go back and try to help the younger children, the grandchildren, to understand why they're in that environment. You see, all this anger that passed on forward, this trauma that came from then passed through, that maybe when they begin to see that picture, kind of a way to kind of start helping them to heal.
Yeah.
So I asked them to do that, and if they would do that, I would come back and work for them. That was 7, 8, 9 years ago. I never heard from them. So I think that's why, because I never heard from them. Yeah. If I had heard from them, maybe I'll be back to working for them. I don't know.
Right.
Has
the Truth in Healing Policy Act passed?
It's still pending.
Still working on it?
Yeah, okay. I guess when they get all this together, it's not really, I kind of think it has really nothing to do, it was kind of conjunction with the law, but I think when they get all this together, it's going to tell the truth of what happened. But more importantly, why we are the way we are today. Why are our children in this state?
Yep.
And what can be done to help that? Then from that, maybe they can start working to do that.
You've been fighting for Indian rights just about your whole life.
Yes.
And this seems like just the next chapter for you. Can you tell us about what happened at the Field Museum in Chicago with Donald Collier?
When I was developing that Native American program at the university, I got word that they had done some things and unearthed some ancestors and some relatives. And so I went down there and talked to them, and at first they kind of brushed me off. Oh, okay. So next time I went down with other folks, And after some discussion, they agreed to repatriate these remains. So we worked with Menominee. We had a Madison man and some land assigned to us over there to put these remains of our relatives back over there. The Film Museum paid for all of that. It was the first time, as far as I know, in the history of this country that ever was done from a major institution like that. And I believe that kind of was a springboard for the federal law for repatriating things back to the tribes, And that was done with the Film Museum back in 1972, something like that.
Yeah, set the groundwork.
Yeah,
and it was featured in a book, right?
Yeah, so Vine DeLoya, he said, I wrote this thing in this book coming out. He said, I wanted to make sure it was okay with you. He said, so what is it? So he told me, and I said, yeah. I said, well, that's the truth, isn't it? He said, yeah. So I said, well, I have no problem with that. So that was it. And he's wrote several books, Custer Died for Your Sins, God is Red, I don't know, 2 or 3 others. But he's gone now.
Yeah, and that was featured in God is Red, right?
Yes, in God is Red, yeah.
So what does the future look like for you? What are you up to next?
Right now I have a big drum. I'm teaching folks, the Lakota songs and Lakota language, and and I try to live the best I can. All my life, I didn't drink. I paid attention to my dad, even though I grew up on the reservations, and it was hard, in that whole process, people, kids, put a lot of pressure, peer pressure on, stuff. But, I had good parents. I had strong parents, that really provided me a good basis. And my siblings as well. Yeah. So I just accept that I will continue maybe to do what I can as best I can, and I don't have no big plans for, well, I do. If this comes out in Hollywood, I might end up being a Hollywood star.
Well, that would be fun. Yeah, maybe a book deal.
Yeah,
I'd love to read a book about your life.
Well, I already said if I become a Hollywood star, I don't have to split.
We talked about that yesterday. Yep.
So that's okay. So Hollywood, if you're there.
That's right. Come find him. He's waiting.
I want to play the role of what's his name in Godfather.
Oh.
Marlon Brando. That's what I want to do.
Well, there it is.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. That's my appeal to Hollywood.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your life. And thank you for always being here for us at the Hibulb Cultural Center. You've been a huge part of our programming for the last 10 years, and we just appreciate and love you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Hibulb Conversations. I'm Michelle Hernandez. Until next time.